All right, then. Welcome to the What's Happening with REH panel. And I'm Rusty Burke. I'm the president of the Robert E. Howard Foundation, so I know less about what's happening with REH than anybody here. Jay Zetterberg knows a little bit of something. He's with Paradox Entertainment, and Paul Herman is the guy who actually does things at the Robert E. Howard Foundation.
One of many.
So I'm going to let them talk.
You want me to do my little stuff first? Let me do my little stuff first. So I can make them wait for the good stuff. So foundation, what we got going on? We've got several more books in the works. Of course, we've got the boxing stuff is extremely close. We're thinking it's going to be a 4-book series. The first book, I think, is virtually done and might be out before the end of the summer. We're still kind of waiting to hear the timetable for number 2. There was a lot of new stuff that came out of the Glenn Lord collection as we've been reviewing it, which turned up all sorts of things. And that's forced us to go back and rewrite and touch up and change out some things and alter some drafts, and led to all sorts of interesting little, and lots of annotations. But that's progressing. We're going to have an autobiographical book featuring the main thing will be the 2 drafts of Post Oaks and Sand Roughs, plus a bunch of other odds and ends stuff. That the original Post Oaks and Sand Roughs, published by Grand, hasn't been available in a long time. Hard book to get. So that one is also close. I think we've kind of already got the cover set out. It should be out before the end of the year. Any luck? Just nobody filmed this and quote me on it. Yeah.
Will that also include all of Howard's other biographical?
Yeah, it'll be all his autobiographical kind of stuff, including
Including the autobiographical fiction.
yeah, the exceptional fiction, like here's where my family's from. There'll be a lot, and that's one of the things that's chewing up time on that, is getting all the annotations done to kind of, so we don't completely mislead people by repeating just somewhat mischaracterizations of his family history, etc., etc. So we'll get that cleaned up.
But it has to be said that the annotation is not being done by one of the fastest people in Howard fandom.
Okay.
Mystery solved. All right.
What's the print run on that one going to be?
It'll probably be the standard 300, 200 to start, and then 50-50 to finish out. We've also going to have a leftover, kind of the leftover last book that's going to have everything else that's left, which will be mostly, then we guys got a James Allison book that is, we've outlined the stories and we've sort of got a first rough cut. We haven't got that finished up yet. That's a ways out. And then a leftover weird book, which will be, The Touch of Death, and there's just a whole collection of little things that haven't quite gotten stuck in anywhere else. Plus we'll pick up all the little unusual things that have slipped in since we first started publishing 3, 4, 5 years ago. So like we found some new poetry in the Tevis papers. We found some new poetry in the Glenn Lord stuff. We got a lot of pieces to dig through there. That's going on, and some new things we never knew existed. A couple pages of a Brecht story that doesn't exist, and all sorts of little odds and ends that'll get thrown into that mess. We're kind of waiting until we finish our full review of the typescripts before we go forward with that book. We got straight westerns, and then the straight western book, and then a couple volumes of humorous westerns, and those are supposedly in the works. I haven't seen how far along they are, so we'll have to wait and see how those go. As some of you may know, I got pulled in to help sort the Glenn Lord collection and papers. Rob came and helped out with part of that for a couple of days. My wife who deserves a lot of back patting, and did a lot of that too, and helped do a lot of the work.
You should bring her so we can thank her.
I know. She didn't want to talk about it anymore. She's tired of it. A lot of scanning, and you can't just take a pile of these old papers and run them through a fast scanner, a load and go scanner, because it'll just rip them to pieces. And plus Howard types to the edge of the page and the bottom of the page, and so you've got to shoot it once and then look at it and go, scoot it up a little bit, shoot it again, trying to get a clean image of it. So there's lots of duplicate pages. I'm currently up to 21,000 scans. But that includes, there's a lot of duplication in there, because we first started scanning Glenn's collection back in 2006. We scanned 8,000 or 9,000 pages. And then out of all this new stuff, we've been scanning a lot of other stuff, and we're not done yet. We've still got you know, I was chatting with Luann the other day, and she said, "Oh yeah, there's 20 more boxes to go through." I'm like, okay, and then those boxes could be all kinds of stuff. You know, it wouldn't just be all TypeScripts; it'd be whatever we have to find. At the moment, I think we've got about, just rough counting, I think we've got about 15,000 pages of original TypeScripts, and that includes some of that, a little of that. You know, so I don't know the exact number, maybe certainly less than 1,000 pages is Glenn retypes, and then all the rest is original stuff. A lot of it is carbon. A lot of it's, you know, because when he got to where his habit was, he would, when he got to the final, he would type the final story with carbons, and then he would mail off the original, and they would destroy it after they were done with it, and then he would have the carbon to save for posterity. And then, for those that don't know, his other favorably fun thing to do was, when he was writing, he'd write multiple drafts of stories. He would type a draft, and it might dwindle to a synopsis. You know, it might be 8 pages long, and then the next one would be 16. The final would be 22. Well, and what he'd do with those drafts are, sometimes they would end up saved and undamaged. You see the entire early draft. What's a lot more common is he would toss them in a stack to use for other drafts, and so he would take them and turn them over and type. And, you know, and he might have an 8-pager and a 10-pager and a 12-pager, and he'd just grab a fistful of that paper and turn it over and type a new 22-page story on the back side that might, you know, have parts and pieces of 3 other stories on the obverse side. So sorting the pages, Glenn actually, of course, when he first got this up in the 60s, he had to physically sort the pages. Well, the trouble with that is some go here and some go there, and you can't do it. I'm working with scan. You know, I've shot everything to high DPI digital scans, so with that you can actually create folders and put things in multi. You can actually separate the front and the back and put them where they go. But everything has to be identified. All the which draft is which draft, and how many pages, and what's complete, and what's the title. You know, we've never been able to answer the question, which titles are Bob's and which aren't. I mean, we've never been able to say, you know, what do we still have, what do we have a draft of and what do we not? You know, we've never been able to answer those questions, and now we'll be able to answer those questions. But so it's sort of my, you know, I've burned 3 weekends down in Houston going through storage lockers. I've rented children several times to take lots of notes on what's in the box, what's in the box, what's in the box. I've seen 1,000, I guarantee you over 1,000 foreign editions of Conan and of everything else Howard done. You know, and apparently Glenn had one of everything. I mean, one of everything. Not everything. He's missing some of the pulps. He had a big collection of pulps. He's missing some of the pulps, but he kind of had one of everything. The only thing he ever had multiples of was when some of the deals he did with like Berkeley or with Bain, they would send him, you know, 10 copies of, you know, a generic book, and he would take one out and leave the packaging around the rest and throw it back in the box. So you'd pull out a box and there'd be, you know, nine of you know, there'd be 3 different or 4 different Berkeley books, 6 or 8 or 10 a piece of them, absolutely spitting brand new. Now they're worth $10, but they're kind of nice to him looking like that. But other than that, he didn't have duplicates. He didn't do duplicates. He had some nice. He had a little bit of artwork, not much. He had he has the original cover for Always Comes Evening, which is really nice. He had a color pencil piece that was done, that went in, that was it was included in like a Christmas card he got from not Lovecraft, but from Clark Ashton Smith, an original Clark Ashton Smith colored pencil piece of some green-eyed dragon monster thing that he just put together, because he and Glenn got along real well, and they had a nice correspondence. There's a ton of correspondence in there, a ton of legal contract stuff that, you know, the Paradox is looking for all their contract stuff, and they've been chewing through that stuff en masse. Poor Nico has just been buried with it for months now, just like I've been doing the rest of the TypeScripts. A lot of duplication of Glenn retypes. It's just a mass. The first weekend we probably threw out 1,000 pounds of stuff. You know, because he tended to keep everything, old electric bills, you know, circulars he got in the mail from somebody. You'd open a box, you pull out something kind of cool. And this is just the way things ended up at the end of his life. So in a storage locker, and you'd pull it out and you'd have to weed through the box to find the good stuff. It was a very interesting way to have to find stuff and then sort it back out. And so we still haven't found, we still haven't found everything we think we're going to find. Turned out maybe 5% maybe got destroyed there was a flood back when Hurricane Ike came through, trashed out his house, trashed out one of his storage lockers, and the people that had the storage locker didn't tell him it had flooded. And so it was 3 weeks until he showed up for it and found it and went, oh my God, look at this, and he had to rebox everything and put it back away. And so I don't know, and some of that, I've seen some of those boxes that they pulled out, and they have some of them they kept, and they were just trashed, and some of the stuff inside was trashed. But the vast majority of it's in pretty good shape, So it's just a mountain of stuff to dig through. So it really is overwhelming to the Lord family how much stuff he collected. He didn't just do Howard. He had Lovecraft, and he had all sorts of horror writers, all sorts of he loved westerns. He had a lot of pulp detective, spy stuff. He just had mountains of stuff. So it's been a lot of work going through it and sorting it out and getting identified and then getting it resorted, repackaged, annotated out, indexed, and put away in boxes. I think we're going to do the first delivery to Harry Ransom. I think is going to be July 6th. I'm not sure about that, but I think that's right. The first 8 or 9 boxes, complete banker boxes, completely full of end-to-end stuff with typescripts. You guys have never seen the original typescripts? They got a few of them down at the library. They have, 600 pages. The Texas A&M has about 300 pages of letters. You occasionally, there's 1 or 2 or 3 stories out there that change hands every so many years. The last one I saw was one of the minor boxing stories, sold for, it was 8, 10 pages. It sold for like $5,000. 1,000 a page is probably somewhere between 100 pages and 1,000 a page is probably the market for that stuff, and it's all going to Harry Ransom. Just like they're dancing on one foot. They're just like, tell us when it's coming. We'll have the press release. We'll have the dog and ponies. Everybody be dressed up nice with the red carpet rolled out, and it's nice. That's where to go. They're going to do a good job of taking care of the stuff. So it's really nice to know it's going there. I'm real pleased that that's happening. So. Anything else Foundation's up to? Books and...
You mentioned that there's some new poems. Are we going to get a new collected poetry? Anybody that wants that, let's hear it.
Yeah, you aren't the only one. So that's and we've talked about what happens when we finish all of our first run of all our books. Do we then have them, once they're all done, do we roll them back over again as Lulu books, Crown to Man kind of thing? Do we try and publisher maybe take a few of them, and that's something Paradox will decide. And Jay will be more than happy to give you some positive comments on that when he speaks, I'm sure. I'm so glad to help him out that way. Any questions from my side of the universe?
When will we start? When do you think you're going to finish, and when will we start seeing the results of your efforts?
My research work? Maybe this year. I mean, the trouble is I have a full-time job, and I have kids, and I have family, and those things are important. And
the first project that's going to benefit from that is going to be the boxing stories.
Oh yeah, and poor Patrice is, every now and then I'll say, okay, I'm trying to identify this, and I've got 2 pages out of the middle of the story. I don't know what they are, and I know a lot of stories, and I got e-text to a lot of stories I can search, so I can figure out most of them. And I'll pull one up and say, okay, what's the Western one that has Dig in it, D-I-G-G? Who's Dig? What Western story is that? He goes, we don't have a Western with Dig. Set that aside. We'll play with it. And he pulled out. I pulled out something for. Said, what's the story with this guy, this guy, this guy? He goes, oh my God, that's Honor of the Ship. We don't have a draft. What do you got? And I said, well, I have at least 2 drafts. Plus I got these other straight pages, and And so there's just tons of that stuff. Because Bob, I know Spradenkamp thought he only wrote 1 draft of everything, but no, he wrote multiple drafts of everything, and tended to keep all those, and kept lots of leftover pages to use multiple times, to do multiple drafts. So it's crazy. It's also amazing how much of it isn't titled. That's one of the fun things. And you don't know it's because maybe they titled the final draft and it's gone. So.
Is this the stuff
You don't know this. Glenn started chasing Howard stuff right after the war in the 50s. And he was he was really interested in Howard's poetry. He really liked poetry, but he also liked other stuff. And so he's, like I said, he was a real persistent kind of guy, and he started chasing this stuff. And at some point he came up here and he talked to the people of Cross Plains, and he got to hear about the guy in California that had the trunk, you know, which really was, at that point was like just a bunch of boxes, but the guy that had all the papers, or had most of the papers. And so he started chasing that guy down in the late 50s, started corresponding with him, negotiating a deal. And then the guy was saying, well, I don't have it. This other guy has some of it. And this other guy has some of it. And, well, I didn't really sell it. I sort of just loaned it to him. And there's a lot of interesting story around that. But he ended up negotiating a deal and buying all that stuff. But at the same time, he did Always Comes the Evening in 1957. He had to help pay for the printing. They were selling the book for $3 a piece. Took years to sell out. You know, started the Howard Collector in '61. Started doing that just because and that was just off stuff he got from. He called up the Priest family, and he found Harold Priest, and he found Lenore Priest, and they sent him a bunch of letters and stuff. You know, he contacted the Lovecraft people, and they sent him a bunch of letters back. You know, he chased down stuff all over creation. And started early and kept doing it for a long time. So the collection just kind of built organically. And he kept stuff. Like I said, I opened one box and it's all this paper in a row. And I'm like, what is this? And you grab the first one to pull it out, and it's Locust #1. And it's a mimeograph page. You know, and you're like, put that back in, #2, #3, #4, #5. It's just all in a row. You know, I don't know when it started. 50s, I guess, somewhere way back there. You know, he's just got tons of that stuff. So
different sources.
Yeah, he would source it from wherever he could source it from. He'd call it the Friend stuff. A lot of the Friend stuff ended up at the library here, and some of it ended up with him, but a lot of it ended up at the library. That was one of the fun things. I tried to chase down where the library got their stuff, and they were able to identify 2 bundles that were brought in on 2 different dates, and the rest of the stuff they can't find any record of when it showed up. It's just there. You know, they can't find any record of when it showed up. It just they don't know where it came from or how it got there. It's just there. You know, like, you know. I would think so. That would certainly be my thought. They just, for whatever reason, it didn't get mentioned. It didn't get into the paper, which is the obvious place to look. See, they might say something in the paper. Didn't see it in the paper. Didn't see it anywhere else. So I bet you'd assume that's where it came from. Came back from the agent. She just said. But yeah, Glenn corresponded with everybody. You know, his correspondence files are just amazing to read through about it. You know, he talked to everybody that was in the business, find out, you know, where they were and what they had and what they were doing. So,
you mentioned sort of yesterday you think maybe 3-4 months, and the stuff for Lenore will be scanned through and then go to the library there. Or do you have more?
I'm thinking with the current, well, I mean, I talked to the library about it, and they said, you know, if you need to bring us like a big bundle and then you find some more and bring a little more and find some more and bring a little more, that's okay. And I said, okay, so, you know, I'm thinking the first big wave will roll in July. And like I said, there were 5 different storage places, each of them filled to the gills with stuff. Okay, and some of it is very neat, and some of it is not very neat. And the family doesn't know what they know a little bit, but they don't know what they're looking at, which is why they called me to go get into it, so I could actually figure out, kind of point out, you can throw that away, you need to keep that, you can throw that away, you can keep that, you know, to help them sort through all that stuff and get them, create an index and, you know, get everything into numbered boxes and put them on a shelf in the storage unit so they can go find stuff. So, I mean, we're through 2 of the 5 maybe. So, I mean, but we think we found the bulk of the typescripts. She knew that's what I wanted first. So, I think we're through the bulk of the typescripts, but and there's a lot of books in there that they just need to just toss. Generic old, they're not even old. There's, you know, paperbacks from the 80s that aren't in very good condition and aren't Howard or anything special. They're just westerns he was reading or something, you know. And they're just generic spy novels from whoever. Just throw that stuff away, you know. Huh? Yeah. So it'll be you know, they got.
Yeah.
Because you know, the HRC is like 5-story, 6-story building. They have one room that's about the size of this pavilion that's open to the public and nothing else. You know, and you come in there and they basically strip search you coming in. You're not allowed to walk in with anything except maybe a computer. Absolutely no writing instruments of any kind. You come in, they'll give you paper and a pencil. You tell them what you want, and they go fetch it and bring it back, and then sit there and watch you while you handle it. So I don't know what I don't think they're planning on taking 20 Howard fans on a tour. I think it'd be nice if they did.
Just for like the dedication or whatever, you know.
Yeah, we'll try and get the word out once we get it firmed up with everybody. I think, like I said, I think July 6th is the tentative date that's being bantied about. So hopefully once we get that locked, I'll get me locked and get them locked, and we'll all get it locked, and then if anybody want, and just let get the word out there and let everybody else who wants to show up, and we'll, have a nice party, and maybe we'll see if we can bluff them into the nickel tour. So I've had the nickel tour twice there, and it is, if you're a paper or a book guy, it is spectacular to go through that place. Yeah, Shakespeare folio. They have so many amazing ancient things in there. That is, and they take care of it so well. It is amazing to walk through that place. So maybe we'll squeeze them for a nickel tour, and we'll drag them along and say, oh yeah, all these people are important. They have to come along too. Bluff it in. So just don't be picking up stuff. Wear your suit. Don't be picking up stuff. Don't touch things. Is that paper fragile? Don't do that. No, it's not. Anything else?
Barbara's got it.
Real quick, just how does it feel to handle those manuscripts, typescripts, pretty cool?
Terrifying. Because you're sitting there and you're trying to. The challenge is you want to do it right, and you have to. No. They're old and handled, and my touching them one more time with clean hands is not an issue. But it's just you want to get them done as quick as you can because there's such a huge volume of stuff to get through. I had multiple tables set up and multiple scanners set up, and during the day the wife is scanning and loading and writing notes, and of course she doesn't know what she's looking at. She doesn't read Howard, and so I'm the one that gets to go back through the list and start filling in the blanks of the details of what each of these things are, and then trying to identify them. And the ones that get challenging, I copy Rusty and Patrice and Rob and say, does anyone know what number 40671? Does anybody know? Here it is. Does anyone know what that? I've numbered everything. Does anybody know what that is? And maybe somebody does, and maybe nobody does. And it's just a lot of there's a lot of and sometimes put them up there and they say, oh yeah, that's so and so. Oh okay, penciled in, got it. And then somebody put it up there and everybody goes, nope, that's new. Write new next to it in the list and just keep rolling. So we found there's a stack of, in the last Celt, Glenn had a list of unpublished little pieces, mostly untitled, little 1-2 page items that never, we asked about them 10 years ago and he just couldn't lay hands on them. He didn't know where they went. They were somewhere in there and he couldn't find them. We found almost all of those. So there was like 13 of those. So we've got stuff for the newsletter for the next 10 years. That's not a problem. So, and all those things are going to show up in that last book we're going to do of kind of the leftover weird plus other new stuff. And all that's that's why we can't do that book until I finish the complete burn of everything to make sure I've gotten through it all and seen it all once, twice, 3 times, whatever, to make sure it's all there. So, but it's somebody just it's the kind of thing that you hope nobody knows you've got $10 million of paper sitting in your front room. Because I'm thinking I only have so many guns in the house, and the wife's going to get touchy if somebody comes through that front door. That's a lot of paper. That's a lot of money sitting around. So
it's a good time to become a member of the Robert E. Howard Foundation, though.
Yeah.
Get the newsletter.